Hello YouTubers, welcome to Awakening Vix. Today I am facing my fear and I am going to be reading out loud to you. I'm going to get rid of this so I can't see myself. That's making it way harder. I can see myself there too. Okay. So already my throat is kind of swelling and I'm feeling quite hot. Because today I'm about to face probably my biggest fear that I know of so far, which is reading out loud. This obviously escalated from childhood. I've been dyslexic my whole life, obviously, like a lot of dyslexic people, and I feel like it's not spoken about enough. God, it's crazy how hard this is. About the trauma of dyslexia, especially in school, and how it continues on to adulthood. I only realised I had a problem about a year and a half ago when I started trying to be on my life path, trying to start teaching about healing and spiritual ascension, and to start my YouTube channel, but I've had a block in my head that's telling me I'm not good enough, a block telling me that I'm not smart enough, and many other blocks, but all escalated, I feel, from dyslexia, from the process I went through in education. And I feel like that trauma has also stopped me from remembering things. Whenever I'm in a situation where I need to learn something, I will naturally stop myself from learning, because I learned at a young age that failing whilst trying was much more painful than failing whilst giving your worst effort. And I've realised I still do that now, but I'm now 29. It's time for me to sort myself out. So I'm going to start here and read a book to you all the way through today. So I might start with chapter 1. And what I'm going to read is Screw It, Let's Do It by Richard Branson, who is also dyslexic. So I thought this would be quite relevant. But you're going to have to bear with me because my throat is very swollen. I'm also quite interested in how the body reacts to certain emotions. So again, this is kind of an experiment for me too. Okay. Okay, this is introduction. The press call me and my partners at Virgin Mavericks in Paradise. There is no doubt that we tend to do things in a less stuffy way than most businesses. I have ended up with 2 tropical islands to have fun on, so it must be true, and for me it must work. I work hard and I play hard. Though I have never followed the rules at every step, I have learned many lessons along the way. My lessons in life started at home when I was young. They carried on at school and in business from as early as my teens when I ran a student magazine. I am still learning and hope I never stop. These lessons have done me good throughout my life. I have written them down and I hope that you will find something in these pages that might inspire you. I believe in goals. It's never a bad thing to have a dream, but I'm practical about it. I don't sit daydreaming about things that are impossible. I set goals and then I work out how to achieve them. Anything I want to do in life, I want to do well. and not half-heartedly. At school I found reading and writing hard. Back then dyslexia wasn't understood, and my teachers just thought I was lazy. So I taught myself to learn things by heart. Now I have a very good memory, and it has become one of my best tools in business. I feel like one of the things about reading out loud is you feel like you're kind of disappointing your listener by not having any charisma in your voice, or pausing at the right moments, or using the right tone, because I don't know what's coming up next for me to keep you hanging. It's just like a robot telling a story. But I'm going to keep going. Bless you. When I was starting out in life, things were more certain than they are these days. You had a career lined up, often the same one your father followed. Most mothers stayed at home. Today nothing is sure, and life is one long struggle. People have to make choices if they are to get anywhere. The best lesson I learned was to just do it. It doesn't matter what it is or how hard it might seem. As the ancient Greek Plato said, the beginning is the most important part of any work. A journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. If you look ahead at the end and all the weary miles between, with all the dangers you might face, you might never take the first step. And whatever it is you want to achieve in life, you don't make the effort, and if you don't make the effort, you won't reach your goal. So take the first step. There will be many challenges. You might get knocked back, but in the end, you'll make it. Good luck. Thanks, Richard. I need it. Whew. Chapter 1. Just do it. Believe it can be done. Have goals. Live life to the full. Never give up. Prepare well. Have faith in yourself. Help each other. The staff at Virgin have a name for me. It is Dr. Yes. They call me this because I won't say no. I find more reasons to do things than not do them. My motto really is, screw it, let's do it. I will never say I can't do this because I don't know how to. I will give it a go. I won't let silly rules stop me. I will find a legal way around them. I will tell my staff, if you want to do it, just do it. That way we all benefit. The staff's work and ideas are valued, and Virgin gains from their input and drive. I don't believe that little word can't should stop you. If you don't have the right experience to reach your goal, look for another way in. If you want to fly, get down to the airfield at the age of 16 and make the tea. Keep your eyes open. Look and learn. You don't have to go to art school to be a fashion designer. Join a fashion company and push a broom. Work your way up. My mum Eve is a perfect example of this. During the war, she wanted to be a pilot. She went to Houston Airfield and asked for a job. She was told only men could be pilots. Mum was very pretty and had been a dancer on stage. She didn't look like a man. That didn't stop her. She wore a leather flying jacket and hid her blonde hair under a leather helmet. She talked with a deep voice, and she got the job she wanted. She learned how to glide and began to reach the new pilots. These were the young men who flew fighting planes in the Battle of Britain. After the war, she wanted to be an air hostess. Back then, they had to speak Spanish and be trained as nurses. But Mum chatted up the night porter at the airline, and he secretly put her name on the list. Soon she was in the air. Soon she was an air hostess. She still couldn't speak Spanish and she wasn't a nurse, but she had used her wits. She wouldn't say no, she just did it. Mum wasn't the only person in our family who said, let's do it. The famous explorer, Captain Robert Scott, was my granddad's cousin. He was a man of great courage. He made 2 trips to the Antarctic. His goal was to be the first man to the South Pole. People said it couldn't be done. He said, I can do it. And he nearly did it. He reached the South Pole, but he was second. Roald Amundsen Amundsen. I find names difficult. I think most of the other words I've I've probably memorized those, but names I've never seen before, so yeah, don't know what it says. It begins with an A, Amundsen, but who knows? Got there first. It was a great blow for Scott. He died on the return journey. So words are kind of jumping around a little bit now, like rather than them jumping around like it does for some dyslexics, I will just read, my sight skips. I would just read like, I won't read in order. So I keep doing that now. I wasn't doing that before. I think I'm going through like phases and layers of different tactics of how to get through this, rather than doing it all at the same time. Right. When people say there are no prizes for being second, I think of him. He is famous for being second to the South Pole. He also made the first balloon flight over Antarctica, but people don't remember that. I started Student Magazine when I was 15 years old and still at school. Some people said I couldn't do it. They said I was too young and had no experience. But I wanted to prove them wrong, and I believed it could be done. I did my sums with care. I worked out how much the paper and print bill would be. Then I worked out the income for sales and from selling advertising space. Mum gave me £4 for stamps. My school friend Johnny Gems and I spent almost 2 years writing hundreds of letters, trying to sell space. I also tried to get interviews with famous people. Wow, that's inspiring. I spent almost 2 years writing hundreds of letters. So I have read this a little bit before I started streaming, and which is why I'm probably reading it not as bad as I would be. I've only read a few pages. I'll get to the pages I haven't read yet. But that's interesting to know that he kept going for 2 years before he had any reply. I also tried to get interviews with famous people. Writing those letters and waiting for the replies was more fun than Latin lessons. It gave me a huge budge when I got our first cheque for advertising space. It was £250, a huge amount. My belief had paid off. I wasn't very good at passing exams at school. I knew I would do better on my own in the world. My parents let me make that choice. They were behind me, whatever I did. So I left school when I was 16 to work full-time on student. John and I camped out in the basement of his parents' London house. It was great to be young, free, and in London. We drank beer, had girlfriends, and listened to loud music. We were like students who didn't have to study. We worked just as hard though. I got some first-rate interviews with John Lennon, Mick Jagger, Vanessa Redgrave, and Dudley Moore. We had more famous names than some of the top magazines. Famous people started dropping by. Life in the basement was glorious chaos. It was like a non-stop party. But we had a serious side as well. We sent our own people out to cover the big issue on the day, like the war in Vietnam and the famine in Biafra. We felt we were changing things. What we did was important as well as fun. We were a close-knit team. Even my family helped to sell magazines. Mum took a big bundle to the park and sold them there. Each time a chance came, we grabbed it. We branched out by being the first people to sell cut-price records by mail order. The first advert went in the last edition of Student. So I've noticed another thing I keep doing is I'm reading, but I'm not really listening to the story. I'm just trying to read. And I think this happened to me a lot in school. Like, I spent most of school, not just English, but all the lessons trying to read, that I didn't actually listen or learn any of the lessons that they were trying to teach us. So, dyslexia isn't just about reading. We also end up knowing less because it's too traumatic. The situation is just... I'm going to carry on. We were a close-knit team. Even my family helped to sell magazines. Mum took a big bundle to the park and sold them there. Each time a chance came, we grabbed it. We branched out by being the first people to sell cut-price records by mail order. The first advert went in the last edition of Student. I'm not even listening to the story. When a postal strike stopped us, we looked for another way. We wouldn't give in. Our goal was to open record shops, but we didn't have enough money. So we talked a man who owned a shoe shop into letting us use his spare space. We worked hard to promote the opening. We made the store a cool place for students to go, and one store led to a second and led to a third. Soon, we had stores in almost every big town, and I was still under 20 years old. Cash was pouring in fast, but I didn't sit back. We had reached that target, but I still had more goals. One of my big goals in life is that, like Captain Scott, I have always wanted to live life to the full. So, in 1984, when I was asked to sponsor a powerboat to win the blue ribbon for Britain... Is that how you spell ribbon? Oh. Ribbon. I agreed at once. The blue riband, that's RIBAND, if anyone knows what that word is a prize for the fastest ocean crossing from America to Ireland. I said I'd join the crew and trained hard. There was only one slight hitch. Joan and I were due to have a baby, and I had promised her that I would be there for the birth. Then we were told that the weather was just right for the record attempt. I would let down the team if I didn't go. I asked Joan, what should I do? Just do it. Go, she said. The baby's not due for 2 weeks. You'll be back before then. We set off, crashing across the waves in Virgin Atlantic Challenger. At the end of the first day, I got the news that my son Sam had been born. We cracked open the champagne and I kept going. The prize for the fastest crossing ever was within our grasp until we hit a huge storm off island. 60 miles from the end, we were hit by a giant wave. The hull split and we sank. Mayday, mayday, mayday. We were in the sea in the middle of a storm in a life raft. A boat on its way to America saved us. We had failed in our first attempt to win the blue riband, but we didn't give in. 6 years later, I was back with Virgin Atlantic Challenger 2. The second 2. Things were going well until we found that seawater was getting into our fuel tanks. The engine stopped. We spent hours cleaning the tanks and trying to start the engines. It seemed hopeless. The others at last said we had to give up. They said it was over, but I knew it was our last try. If we didn't do it now, we would never do it. I had to persuade them not to give in. I said, come on, we've got to do it. Let's try. We were all done in. Our eyeballs were red and tired. We were all seasick. We hated the boat. We hated the sea. We wanted to sleep for a week. We've got to go on, I yelled. All right, they agreed. We'll give it one last shot. Somehow we started the engines and got going again. It seemed hopeless. We were so far behind that there seemed little point in trying. But we kept going. We made up time. And in the end, we beat the record by just 2 hours and 9 minutes. But we did it. The lesson I learned from that and that I live by is to keep trying and to never give up. The day after we had won the blue ribbons, a Swede named Perlenstrad asked me to cross the Atlantic again in a hot air balloon. I thought of my old hero, Captain Scott. He had flown in an air balloon over the South Pole. I had never been in a balloon before. No one had ever flown that far in a balloon before. It was mad. It was too risky. But then my companies were dealing in hundreds of millions of pounds. What would happen if I died? There were many problems, but I can't resist the challenge and the chance to try something new. I said, screw it. Let's do it. But first I asked Pierre, do I have any children? Do you have any children? Yes, he said. I've got 2. That was good enough for me. If he would take the challenge, so would I. I shook his hand and he said I would join him. I always tell people that if they want to do anything well, they must plan and prepare. So I went to Spain and with Pierre and learned to fly in a balloon. I didn't know it then, but those lessons saved my life. One of the things I learned was that each hot air balloon carries fuel, which is burnt to heat the air in the balloon. Hot air rises and so does the balloon. When the fuel is not burned, the air cools and the balloon drops lower in the sky. When flying a hot air balloon, the pilot must heat or cool the air so the balloon is not at the right level to catch the wind going in the direction of the balloon needs to go. The winds and the jet stream blow from America to Europe. We left from America, and 29 hours later we were over Ireland. We were the first to cross the Atlantic in a hot air balloon. There was only one problem: how to land. He had some full fuel tanks left, and it was too dangerous to land with them. We might crash and burn. We chose to come down low and drop the tanks in a field. We reduced the flame in the balloon and came down low. We cut the tanks free, but then we were too light. We bounced across the field and shot up into the sky, out of control. "Let's come down on the beach where we won't hurt people," Pierre said. We flew into thick fog and missed the beach. The sea looked very black and stormy. If we landed in it with the balloon, we could drown. I struggled into my life jacket. Suddenly, from around 56 feet, Pierre jumped into the icy sea. Without his weight, the balloon shot up too high for me to jump. I was on my own. I floated higher and higher into the clouds. The winds took me north, towards Scotland. I was alone, flying in the biggest balloon ever built. I had about an hour of fuel left. When it went, I would fall into the sea. I tried the radio. It was dead. I didn't know what to do. I could jump out in my parachute or stay put. I wrote in my notebook, "Joan, Holly, Sam, I love you. Well, I'm alive. I can still do something." I said to myself, something will turn up. Something did. As the balloon drifted down towards the grey sea, I came out of the clouds and saw a helicopter. It was searching for me. I waved and the crew waved back. I was safe. Close to the waves, I jumped into the sea, away from the balloon. Without my weight, it flew up and out of sight. The helicopter fished me out of the icy water. I asked Pierre, but they had thought he was with me. He had been in the sea for hours. He had to find him quickly. I told them where he would be, and he was rescued just before he froze to death. The whole trip was an amazing experience. I learned many lessons, not just if you want to do something, just do it, but also to prepare well, have faith in yourself, help each other, never give up. Well, I personally learned from that story not to get in a hot air balloon with just two people, if you don't really know what you're doing. But oh well. All of these lessons can be used in life. You don't have to run a big business, fly in a balloon, or break records in a boat to learn from and use the lessons I learned. Your goal can be small. Student Magazine was very small at first. I sold space in it from a payphone at school, and because I believed I could and would do it. If something is what you really want to do, just do it. Whatever your goal is, you will never succeed unless you let go of your fears and fly. End of chapter 1. So thank you very much for listening. That was me reading and facing my fears. And I feel like it went well. If I can see myself, my eyes go funny. And I feel like it went well. At first I was pretty freaking out. My throat still feels really sore. But I'm going to read all the chapters, I think. I don't normally read a whole book, but I'm going to use this opportunity to face my fears, but also to actually start finishing books, especially small ones like this. So thank you very much for listening to me today. Good luck with your fears. If you want to post you experiencing your fears, please do also maybe in my comments box. That'd be really nice for me to see. So good luck with the rest of your week and your day and your month. See you soon. Bye.